Welcome to Property Matters here on Dublin South FM. You can contact the show on Twitter, Facebook or LinkedIn at iPropertyRadio, or indeed email hello@iPropertyRadio.com. Your host for today is myself, Carol Tallon, and I'm delighted to be joined by Brian O'Brien, CEO and architect at Opoplan. So Brian, thank you so much for joining us today. Opoplan, what is that?
Hi Carol, thank you for having me on the show. So Opoplan is the world's first automated virtual architect for simple buildings. And we have found a way to automate what architects do on more simple buildings. And we're starting with the American house market, which is a house plans market, which is a very big and very established market. I really believe that an architect-designed home is a huge benefit to the consumer and to the person and family. But unfortunately, only two to at best 10% or 8% of houses of single family houses are designed by architects. So I've always been very sort of shocked by that and surprised, and set out really a few years ago to see if there was a way to excuse me for my phone.
No, that's fine, no problem.
To try to solve that problem. And we've come up with a way to do that, and we're up and running. So we're very excited about that.
Brian, I'm going to have to take a few moments here to try understand the challenge here, because to me, what an architect brings is that individuality and looking at the site specific. So it's automating creativity at such a bespoke level. How do you even go about that?
I mean, that's a wonderful question. And it gets to the heart, I suppose, of why we think Opoplan is very disruptive and will change the industry. So my experience over 20 years as a client-facing architect, project by project, has been exactly what you said. It is a very bespoke, creative, iterative process. However, we do at the beginning of projects and for simpler projects, a lot of what we do is actually quite systemized. The way we analyze where the sun is, where the view is, where the slope is. And I'm talking about simpler buildings, obviously. So we actually have found a way to do that. I'm obviously not going to reveal all of the ways that we do it underneath the hood. But the secret sauce is what we call a design decision system. And that then speaks to an analysis of the site and an analysis of the customer's brief, which they give us in our online interface. So they actually give us a lot of parameters. We then analyze those using techniques that we have turned into code, and then we take our system and we produce a design for them from a series of template designs and seed designs, and then we modify them and adjust them and deliver them to the customer. And they're a pretty good approximation of what an architect will do at the early stage. It is certainly not the entire process that an architect goes through, and it is absolutely not the equivalent of the full service an architect will do. But given that 90% of people don't really get to go near an architect at all, we think there's a huge market for that sort of Pareto principle type solution, the 80-20 solution, I guess.
Well, actually, that's really interesting, because I wasn't aware of those figures, as in of homes that are designed by an architect, as opposed to maybe a more engineered solution. But for Opoplan, who's the intended customer here? So
our customers are actually the end user, the end customer, the family that is building their own home. And it's very interesting. The American market is very different to the Irish market. We're sitting here in Ireland talking this through. But in the States, there's 1 million single family new homes built every year. About 40% of those are done by developers, and about 2 to 8%, depending on the figures, are designed by architects. So in between, we have around 500,000 that are designed by, or not designed at all, by somebody else, or not designed at all.
Would that be what we would say in Ireland? Are these self-builders?
Yeah, they sort of are self-builders, but really they're self-developers, in that they find a lot. They usually a property that's old, they tear it down, and then they bring in a builder to build a new home to a plan they found somewhere. And quite often online. There's a huge industry in the States of online plans. And that's really the industry we're going after and we're trying to disrupt, because it's quite archaic, and it really doesn't use modern technology or analysis or AI or visualization. So we're really trying to get in there and help people to get a much better design that's much closer to the service that we get from an architect. But more importantly, that it'll be closer to their budget or on their budget. It will fit on their site. Believe it or not, about half of the over half of the houses that house plans that people buy from online sources currently don't fit on their lot, and over 70% don't fit on their budget. And that is just not acceptable or necessary with the technology that's around and available now, and the technology we have. So that's sort of. And then most people don't really understand their plans anyway. So we are helping to bridge that gap by the fact that everything we do is in 3D, and it's a self-exploring 3D inside your own browser. So that's how we deliver our designs.
Okay, and actually, as somebody who I would fall into that category of not understanding the plans and having difficulty reading the plans, so actually immersive technologies and even kind of a 3D and even CGI images to a certain extent, I find a great aid. But just, I suppose, to help us understand the problem a little bit more, why are people not engaging architects? Is it a value? Is it a cost issue? Or is it that they don't see the value if they have looked at a house and they think, I'd like this, take a photograph of it, send it to the builder and say, can you build me this? Is it a cost issue or a lack of understanding around the value?
I think it's a bit of both. But first to the numbers. In the States, there's at most about 200,000 architects. And we just said there's about 500,000 houses needing to be designed. So if every architect was doing 2 or 3 houses a year, they'd be doing nothing else. So there just aren't enough architects. And I suppose that's also because the fees that an architect needs to charge, and I understand why they need to charge them, are just not within the reach of most people who are trying to build a $200,000-$300,000 home in the US. Now, there is huge parts of the US where people are spending a lot more money and they are bringing in architects, and those are more complex, larger cities or more expensive areas. So that's where a lot of the efforts that architects are involved is going. But the vast majority of the US is a much easier market for people to locate their own plan, bring it to their own local builder and build their own house. And that's what people are doing, 500,000 per year.
Brian, what's your own background? Have you worked in the States?
So I've actually had my own practice in Dublin with a great friend, Mike Haslam, Solar Architecture, for close to 20 years, up to about 2 years ago. And I've also studied and worked in the US. So I know the US market very well. And did my master's over there. And we're getting a great exposure to it because the company is currently in the Skydeck incubator program out of the University of California, Berkeley as well. So we're very happy with that.
I can hear your dog in the background. No, you're fine. This is one of the things that COVID has brought us. So I'm recording from our home office. My dogs are generally very quiet though, so I get to be a little bit smug about that. What kind of dog do you have there, Brian?
So we have a lovely a Swiss Shepherd, which we just got from a rescue about 3 months ago. Beautiful. And she's the sweetest thing, but she does bark when the postman comes. So that's what she does start, I suspect. Yeah. No,
do you know what? Actually, we always talk about moving towards a more holistic way of life, and actually, I think despite it happening through technology, I think COVID has really done that. It's actually broken down the parts of our lives because everything is converging. So actually, I always think it's a really interesting dynamic. So don't ever apologize. Don't ever apologize for kids or dogs, whatever about anything else.
Indeed.
But Brian, so you're coming from this with an understanding of how the marketplace there works. Do you think a solution like that would ever work in Ireland, or is this not a focus because
it's interesting? We talk about. I mean, there are very different challenges in Ireland. For instance, in the US, we say that in those areas outside the big cities, the barriers to build are very low, which is why we have focused our business over there. By which I mean, to build in most places, you need a permit. Not planning permission, you need a permit, and a permit takes a local engineer 2 or 3 hours, and it's literally a series of calculations about beams of traffic and so on. In Ireland, you actually do need a human being to sit down and do your planning application for you once the design is done. That said, we've found a huge demand from Irish people, so we have actually developed a service that's geared more towards Ireland called newhouseplans.ie, and that is serving some of our designs out to Irish customers ready, close enough to something that they can go and take to a planning application and at very good prices. So we've tried to adjust the Irish market through that, but the real focus in the technology and the automation is going towards Opoplan, which is the American market.
Yeah, and look, that completely makes sense. But just, we touched on their cost being a barrier. So what's the cost? So say for somebody who is, somebody in the US, they found their own lot. They're happy to work with an engineer to get their permit, or indeed to do it themselves. If they use Opoplan, what's the likely cost implication for them?
So our service is actually it's the automated virtual architect, and what that means is we're a design centered service, but actually we're also a platform to manage your entire pre-build journey. So you would come in and we make your first designs for free, so you can see them for a certain period of time for free in your browsers, in your immersive environment. And after a certain period of time, we start charging a subscription, and that subscription is around the $10 to $20 to $30 a month for you to keep accessing your platform and your designs and begin to make changes to them. And then when you are ready and you feel that it's time to take your designs and go and approach your builder or start getting your permit, you make the full purchase, and the full purchase is approximately $2,000, which is the price that the midpoint of our competitors. So that's where the price we're using at the moment. And for that, you get an architecture design set, which is what we in Ireland would call your outline design, beautiful drawings. And we also give directly to the builder a builder's layout set and builder's information set. So that's only given to your registered builder. And so we're obviously trying to create synergies there and future referrals from builders with that. And then there's a whole series of upsells that we also offer for additional prices. So augmented reality, 3D printable files, and various other higher technologies that really are synonymous and integrated to our core technology.
Brian, I don't want to take us off topic, but because you've touched on it there in terms of trying to design a solution for the Irish marketplace, our planning system in Ireland, does it work? Does it do the job it's supposed to?
It's a very complex question. I mean, I think the first thing I'd say is procedurally planning in Ireland is overly complex. There are, as we know, 26 counties, but there's something like 40 or 45 planning authorities or more. Many of them with different planning application forms, many with different approaches to validation, and so on. So I think it is actually very difficult for the ordinary person to go anywhere near even making a planning application, not to mind, getting to the point of a design before that. I think planning, I'm a great believer in the fact that planners are professional, and they're doing their best in a very difficult kind of context, I think. But the one thing that always strikes me is that planners, a planner I know once said that actually in Ireland we don't have planning, we have planning law. And that they're constantly trying to interpret the law, whereas planning, certainly that's true up to recently. I think I'm seeing changes now with the new planning office of the planning regulator and the more spatial strategies that have emerged in the last 5-10 years. So there is more of a holistic sense of things. But up until quite recently, it was very much about interpreting a policy that's written down, and that's when the country's divided up into 26. Counties and then many cities have their own planning authorities, it just gets very unwieldy, and it's hard to see the strategy in there, I suppose.
I don't want to put you in an unfair position here, but because your product is aimed at self-builders, that's something that urban planners would like to see outside of an urban context not happen at all. Have we overcorrected?
And I think it's fair to say that our new designs can be built in suburbia. It is not only greenfield sites, and I know there's huge sustainability questions about building off in greenfield sites. But the reality is thousands of people are doing that every year in Ireland, and they're doing it in very poorly designed houses. And I know because I'm often contacted to try to give people advice. Believe it or not, as part of the RAI charity event, I've just done more than 20 design clinics for people in the last month. And I've found the same questions coming up over and over again. We have this house. It just isn't working. Can you help us to figure out why it's not working, and to improve it? So there's a lot of houses that just aren't designed well, and we can improve that. So newhouseplans.ie isn't just about greenfield sites. You can do our designs in a replacement situation, in a suburban context or an urban context, or at the edge of town as well.
Actually, that's, you've answered a question that I've often thought about in my mind, and that is true. I think the RIAI design clinics, it's an amazing initiative, but I've often wondered, is it more existing homeowners who are looking to see what they can do with their existing home, or is it people who are thinking of purchasing a property, or at what stage, who tends to come through the doors for those design?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, I was quite surprised at the demand. In my case, probably of those, I think I did well over 20. I just happened to have a few weeks where I was able to do that, and I sort of undertook it as a market research exercise for Opal Plan and for new house plans as much as anything else. 3 or 4 of those families would have been trying to do a new build, and the rest were trying to do quite a medium or a radical overhaul to their house. So that was the sort of mix of it.
Very good. But did most of them already have their own home?
Most of them had their own home. Yeah, some of them, maybe 2 or 3, so 10-15% were looking to build on a new site that they had or had their own.
Okay, I think that's really interesting to hear you talk about that in the context of market research, or if you're going through accelerator programs, they probably term that client discovery.
Customer discovery.
Yeah. We've done our rounds of those, and that's always a really interesting one. So, whether the client discovery is in Ireland or in the US, we're hearing about trends post-COVID as a move away from open plan, even in our domestic homes. Is that something you've seen borne out? Actually,
I'm thinking of writing this up, because what I've been seeing from these clients is not borne out by that. I mean, I think what I would say is there's a need now for open plan plus, and the plus is actually we do need to be able to subdivide some spaces, and we do need extra spaces. Clearly, we need home office spaces, but possibly also one that's been coming up a lot is play spaces, a playroom for kids. I mean, I haven't heard of that in 30 or 40 years since people have very big houses.
What do you mean, as in a separate space for kids?
Either a separate space, and the way I'm imagining it, and from talking to people, it's where there's a lovely carpet laid down, and the toys are brought out, and there's cabinets for the toys to be put back into at the end of the play session. So it's while the parents are maybe working at the other side of the room, and they kind of have the kids in one part of a space, they're able to work away and look over, and they can see that the child is safe and happy, and then move over to them whenever they need attention.
As opposed to having a separate playroom down the hall.
Yeah, or not having anything. So there's been that. But I certainly don't think open plan is dead by any means. I think open plan is it's open plan plus. We need open plan and something else now, other spaces.
I think that's a really good description of it, open plan plus, and maybe that plus is flexibility. So as in the flexibility is designed in. So whether it's sliding walls or even down to spaces that can be used as play space, but then cleared away entirely. That's a really interesting one, because throughout COVID, there's been so much media commentary about what the response is likely to be, but it's too early to say what it is going to be. But through the design clinics and through the people making inquiries through Opal Plan, you actually have good insight into where their mindset is right now in terms of their home.
We do really, because our entry point to Opal Plan is actually a briefing system where the customers give us a brief, and it's a very nice interface developed on foot really of my years of experience of people coming in and having the cup of coffee in the architect's office, and people are so turned on at the point where they've got to the place where they're commissioning an architect for their house. There's a huge enthusiasm, huge interest, and engagement. So we've really tried to bring that into our online briefing system. And we've huge data coming out of the online briefing system over the last year when we've been in beta. And so we really know what people are looking for, and we've managed to parse that and analyze it. So there's a huge amount of data for trends underneath our system as well, which we'll eventually make available.
Yeah, I really hope that you do, actually, because that's what we're missing at the moment. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence or anecdotal commentary, and we don't really know where that's likely to fall for people at an individual level. So actually having access to that would be a really interesting one for you to publish. And so actually I look forward to seeing if that's what comes next. And what is next for Opoplan?
So technologically, we're just about to launch the beta of our dashboard. So currently our briefing systems and our design engines work in beta, and that's up and running and has been for the last number of months. We're about to complete our first version of our platform, which is where you literally come to exchange ideas with other people in the same process and to store your budgets and lots of briefs that you've examined. So you'll be able to store all those there and link them to different designs, make design changes or seek design changes. So that's that. We're really just trying to accelerate the engagement of customers and users, and continue to learn from them and learn how to make our systems better, add new, wider breadth of designs. And eventually we will go seeking investment. But right now we're not actively looking for investment. We're looking for advice. We're looking for people to help us with any insights they have. So that's where we are.
That's funny when you say you're not looking for funding, but you are looking for advice. There is this old adage around VC funding for startups. This piece of advice: if you're looking for money, ask for advice. But if you're looking for advice, ask for money. Maybe there's something in that.
There is.
Brian, it's an interesting concept, and as you mentioned there, you are sitting on some really interesting information in terms of trends that I think would definitely be interesting to explore. If that was something you were open to, it was so interesting to see that data. But from one of the larger kind of takeaways from this conversation is maybe about the planning system in Ireland. We know there's changes afoot. What those changes are likely to be, we don't know. I don't think they're going to go down the route of making it easier for self-builders. That's, as a farmer's daughter who believes everybody should be able to live off grid in the fields, that's something I struggle with. But I know I'm in the minority. And
it does bring up a lot of difficult subjects, I think. But I mean, to be fair to planners, there is a huge scale problem, and developers. We need a lot more housing supply. And it's not houses, it's housing, it's apartments. And we need to do something about the main streets of our towns. There's tens of thousands of potential units sitting in bus shops all over this country. And the benefits that would bring to the town, to the people, but there's city technical problems that can only be solved one by one. And that needs a system. That needs a grant system, a VAT relief system. But there's a lot of scope in there, and we can't always be looking to new build. There's a lot of assets sitting around empty.
Brian, you touched on something very important. Before we finish up, apartments are of course homes, but have we taken a step backwards in Ireland over the last week in the government maybe not acknowledging that?
I'm sort of trying to remember the whole justification for allowing the REITs and the other funds in, and I don't want to really go back there because I can't say I have a full grasp of it, but I do know that apartments, when designed well, and I think the mistake we made was about 3 years ago when we reduced the size of the apartments in the bottom of the recession, and that I think is a big problem. But apartments are only part of it. And if we look at our European friends that live in apartments all their whole lives, they have security of tenure, which we know. Not only that, though, on every street corner there's a playground. And that's the pocket parks and playgrounds and public transport. Those are all the things you need. Of course, COVID really showed us we need to be able to get out of our houses as well. So the public realm and the city planning has to be worked for the apartments as well. It's not just everything inside the gate of the development. So I think that I'm quite passionate about city planning as well. And it seems to me that the whole thing of you should really not have to cross the main street to get to a playground if you're in an apartment. And a main street, I think, is more than two lanes of traffic, two rows of carriages of traffic.
Yeah, look, if there was one solution, it would be much easier to find it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, indeed.
The problem is there are so many. Listen, Brian, thank you so much for being so generous with your time today. That
Wonderful.
was Brian O'Brien, CEO and architect of Opal Plan. We need to take a quick break. Stay tuned.
93.9 Dublin South FM.
Welcome back to Property Matters on Dublin South FM with myself, Carol Tallon. You can contact us on Twitter at iPropertyRadio or indeed email hello@iPropertyRadio.com. So now I'm delighted to be joined by Milan Taradnik, and he's founder and CEO of Propster. Milan, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to get into this later today, but today's a big day for Propster.
Yes, indeed, it's true. Also, thank you for having me. We just announced our seed round. We raised 3 million in our seed round. And I'm super excited, actually. So you don't see it right now.
Listen, we want to see the excitement, but we also want to see the process behind it, because in Ireland, it's something we talk about a lot, but in Ireland, we have a slower fundraising and our once we're getting to levels above a couple of million, then any of our startups have to leave Ireland. So actually, you've got quite an international base as well. But let's start by talking about Propster. What is Propster?
I think you just compared, you just said Ireland. I think it's quite comparable with Austria. We started in Austria. It's also a smaller country. And for us as a startup, if you want to build something global or international, you have to go outside of Austria. But still, it's a good country, to have kind of, let's say, proof of market, proof of concept. And this is what we achieved quite early. The story behind Propster is also quite interesting. So I'm working in the real estate industry for more than 15 years already. And Propster was actually bootstrapped out of one of my former companies. I had a digital advertising agency with focusing on real estate digitization. And when we started the whole idea with Propster, it was just an idea which came up through a project we had with one of the bigger property developers here in Austria, and we supported them with finding the right way through the digitization, and we realized that there is a big topic they have to improve, and it was the interaction between them and their customers, like buyers, tenants, and investors. And we realized that this challenge is not only a big challenge for them, it's actually a big challenge for the whole industry, because somehow the whole industry is struggling a lot with the customer demands. And we realized this and agreed with this customer to start a pilot project to improve it. We compared it a little bit to the automotive industry, because we said it would be actually great if you could configure your property, like configuring a car online. So you purchase online, you configure it and you manage everything online, but very, from this point of view of the customer. And they liked it a lot. So we started it. And within the first year, it was the reaction was massive. So the other customers approached us and said, we would like to be a part of this pilot project. So I realized, there is a big opportunity. We should do something out of it. And that's why I founded Propster 3.5 years ago in Austria. And as you said, for us as an Austrian startup, we realized also quite quickly you have to go abroad. And I think it's similar with the Irish companies. You go to UK and we go to Germany. So this is the next market, which makes sense for us. And this is what we did early in the process. And now we're active in Austria, Germany, Switzerland, Slovenia, UK. We are now preparing ourselves to enter Russia, Dubai, and so on. Yeah, we have, I would say, more than 90 customers right now with over 200 projects. And as I said, like what we provide is basically a configuration collaboration platform where property companies can improve the whole interaction between them and their customers.
Milan, I think it sounds amazing. I'm so impressed with the journey that you've had before, but I'm interested, you mentioned there that you've been 15 years in real estate. Was all of that spent on the digital marketing side of it?
Yeah.
Or were you right? Because I'm just thinking, we run a communications agency here in Ireland, and digital marketing 15 years ago, unless the Austrian estate agencies and developers were very far ahead, digital marketing wasn't on their radar 15 years ago.
No, that's true. We received orders by fax in the beginning. that's over actually. I'm very thankful for that. I think it was. I think it's the right timing. Like when I started, it was the whole beginning. All these the companies realized that selling property online is getting more and more like interesting for them, because people started to search properties online. And still in the beginning, it was like having the newspaper and internet. And now it shifted and it's really nice to see how it goes, how the whole process goes now, that like the whole, I would say the sales process already quite well digitized already. If you are searching for property, you do this online. I think the newspaper, I think this is gone already somehow, except like maybe luxury property, something like that. But the broad scope of the whole sales process already digitized. And the big challenge of the real estate industry that the sales process is only a part of the whole value chain. So you have to go through lots of different steps. So talking about sales process, asset management, the planning. Then also, we have to go through the whole process when it comes to manage property, to build the property. So there is still a long road ahead of us. But I think that it's the right timing right now. People are talking about PropTech, about Contech. And so I'm really happy to be a part of it with Propster to transform this very old-fashioned, fragmented, conservative industry. It's right about time.
Yeah, look, I agree completely. And, similarly, you touched there on Contech and all construction technology. I mean, that's such a growth area, and it's where we're seeing the most traction, particularly coming out of Ireland now, because, as you said, so many elements of the property transaction have now been digitized. So just in terms of Propster, talk me through your client base. So who are the early clients of Propster?
Yeah, so basically our main clients are property developers, construction companies, general contractors, general planners, and it's mostly the sales department, or also like the customer relations department. So these are like the main target group we have right now.
Okay. And how do you position your services? Because in one way, it could be seen as streamlining communications, but obviously it goes so much further than that. So in terms of the value proposition, when you're speaking to clients, how do you position the offering?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question, because we realize like in the German-speaking countries, and this is really funny, that's because sometimes the stereotypes are true. We went through the PyLabs Accelerator, as I mentioned before. And within this PyLabs Accelerator, we realized these stereotypes that in Germany, our main trigger was, to be more efficient, to improve efficiency, to improve the processes. And when we started to pitch the product in UK, everybody was like, yeah, efficiency is good, but actually we want to earn more money. And I was like, oh, but true, of course. Like if we are in Germany, everything is about efficiency. If we are in UK, everything is about, to make more money out of the products and the projects. This was quite funny. In the core, we are solving always the same challenge, the interaction with the customer, but the trigger is always a little bit different. So for example, in the German-speaking countries, the sales department is not really our target group. In UK, it's very much our target group, because we can help the companies to increase off-plan sales, especially for developers who are selling property in London, which what is really much into selling to foreigners, so people who are sitting somewhere else, like Dubai or Singapore, something like that. They are very interested into having a configuration and collaboration platform where you can manage the whole process remotely. So this is what we have learned, and the main or the unique selling proposition for us in UK is really, to help to fasten up the sales process, and also to help the companies to earn more money and faster.
Okay, over the last number of years, because the core of what you do is tackling the interaction with the end consumer, are those consumers changing? How have you experienced that over the last kind of 3.5 years since Propster? Are the buyers behaving the way you might have expected them to behave? Are they changing in line with digital changes?
I would say so. I mean, there are, on the one hand, of course, we have to say that our life is already quite well digitized. We have the smartphones. Look at us. Like right now, we have this Zoom call. So everything is digitized, and the COVID pandemic also played its own part in this whole journey. But what was very interesting to see is also that the customer demands changed, that the customers demanding individuality, that they are not, it's not enough just, to build and sell like the building with one sort of tile and parquet. It's not enough anymore. I have the feeling that people are more into they want to individualize their property, their apartments, their house. And this is interesting to see. And it's also something what we try to tackle with Propster, to provide buyers and tenants and investors with more with more tools and features where we can help them to individualize their property. So this is something what I have seen so far in my 15 years.
Okay, stepping outside of it, I can see that more customization generally leads to less efficiency and drives up costs. So how do you tackle that?
That's interesting. That I would agree and disagree.
Okay.
So that's really interesting. And this was like when we started in Austria and Germany, this was like the main part, because in the German-speaking countries, you have a high rate of off-plan sales, and people demand changes. As I said, it's not enough anymore just to have like 1 or 2 or 3 colors of tiles. They really ask for different variations. And we realize that there is a big opportunity for the property companies, because if you manage this whole process the right way, then you can actually have more planning and price security, and you have also a better customer relationships. Why? And we do this by combining 2 methodologies, the configurator and e-commerce. So in the pilot project, as I mentioned before, we had one idea. The idea was to provide buyers with 4 to 8 variations in different price segments. Just think of a car configurator. It's the same thing. If you want to sell a car online, there is always a configurator. You can choose out of different colors, different kind of wheels, and so on. And this is the same thing what we want to do in the real estate industry. And it works. So we know 4 to 8 variations in different price segments, and 80 to 90% of the people will stay within this product selection. And if you are already prepared for this, you have the chance of price and planning security. And the second thing, what is happening, and this is a huge opportunity for the industry, you can increase the margins. There is a huge upselling potential. We have use cases with customers, with clients, where we can see that they earn really interesting margins just by adding variations in the tiles or faucets. It's working. So I think, and this is, I understand the industry, of course. Like if you're building, like, let's say 50 years the same, nothing really changed, then it's really hard to change something. And that's why we also need these early adopters. And when we started in Germany and Austria, sometimes really the companies laughed at us, say, this is not going to work out. Come on, this is like, just it's not going to work out. But some of the companies said, hey guys, this is actually really interesting. Let's try. And now after 3.5 years in Germany, Austria, to configure property, to configure an apartment is like state of the art. It's normal. The companies are already writing it into contracts. You have, if you are selling the property, you need an online configuration collaboration platform. And it's really funny. We are just witnessing the same thing in UK. So it's really hard to get the first clients in UK, but there are some early adopters. One of them is Clarion Housing. They are just starting projects with us.
Very good.
And we will expect it will be the same thing.
Yeah.
So
I think actually the approach to upselling is really interesting, because developers really have a challenge with that, because when people are spending so much on a product, they want it to be all inclusive, whereas actually by going in and configuring, they can really see where the extra cost is coming from. So therefore the upselling probably doesn't feel like upselling. It's more choice based. So as in, I'm going to choose a different finish and I'm responsible for my choice by paying for my choice. And one of the things I'm interested in, because I'm trying to think, if you were coming into the Irish market, I'm trying to think of the mindset of Irish developers and the existing supply chains of Irish developers. When you were dealing with your early customers, did they have to make changes in their supply chain to be able to fit this model?
Also a very good question. And this was I think the biggest challenge to start this. So we realized quite quickly that when it comes to the whole product procurement supply chain, we should not touch it yet. So we should not touch it because it's really hard to disrupt this. It will happen in the future, but not now. So what we try to do, and I think that this is what was very helpful to work in the industry for more than 15 years, that you cannot just disrupt this industry from one day to another. It doesn't work out. What we try to do is to help the property companies with their existing suppliers to prepare the right products, because you don't have to change suppliers. There are if you work with all the manufacturers, we just help the property companies to identify the right products. Mm-hmm. And this is what we're doing. So basically, one of our key innovations in our product is that we use demographic data to provide the property companies with the right product choices. So when property companies start with Propster, they just tell us where is the building, where it's located. Based on the location, we know the demographics. So we know, okay, in this street or in this area, we have a target group of XYZ. And then we have a product database. So actually, from the terminology, we are a so-called SaaS-enabled marketplace. Mm-hmm. So the configuration platform is the software as a service part, and it enables a marketplace. And the marketplace is not a transaction marketplace; it's just a product database where data is we gather data to help the property company to identify the right product. So based on the project specifications and also based on the demographics, we can help the property company to identify the right variations. And this is helpful because you can do this already in the planning phase.
And I presume that helps you then maybe give guidance on what the 4 to 8 variations should be, so yes, that you're not looking at, that you're able to add some structure to that. It strikes me, Milan, that you said that, you came to the decision that, you can't touch the supply chain or procurement yet. Yeah. Does that mean there's an innovation in the works?
Yes. We try. There is I think we have to be careful in the real estate industry. It's to digitize this, you cannot compare it with the finance industry, for example. Mm-hmm. It's we are talking about such a big value chain. You have to deal with so many things. You just have to look at how many proptechs just how are active on the market, and still there are popping up proptechs and contact companies everywhere. So this is showing quite well that it's a big challenge. And in this particular case, we are also trying to work with other companies because we cannot do it on our own. So cooperation with other startups is very important. We can see that for this, it's not the right timing for this. So we are keeping ourselves a little bit, okay, let's wait for this. Let's wait what happened. But we have some ideas already in the backlog, I would say.
Yeah, Milan, I'm so happy to hear you talk about understanding the need to collaborate with other PropTech startups, because actually that's one of the things about 4 or 5 years ago we identified as one of the failings. So for some of the early startups that we saw coming through PropTech Ireland, those who didn't understand the need to integrate well and work well with the other PropTech startups who were solving similar but different issues at different stages of the process, but for the same clients, they really lost out, because the reality is clients within the industry don't want 7, 8, 9 solutions. They want 1, maybe 2 solutions that tie in well together and are more comprehensive. So I think that's a really important, and you mentioned there that, Propster is born out of a previous company or early businesses that you had. And I think that's, there's a real learning that comes from that. So I can almost tell the founders who have had early businesses themselves as opposed to those who are coming out and this is their first business, because there's a real appreciation for learning and understanding how it all ties in together. And I think maybe that's the maturity that's sometimes confused with age, but I actually think it's not about age. I think it's about having the experience of running your own business, responding to clients, and understanding how that shapes a further offering. There's a loss of ego in that. You're taking it more, you're letting the market talk to you as opposed to you talking to the market.
Yeah, I mean, like what you just mentioned is I totally agree. I think there needs to be a balance of, you need this kind of, like the young wild founders with maybe there is not the right timing for their idea, but you need them. Need them. And that's why I'm saying that there needs to be a balance. And I think also that if you compare it with other industries, it's like something, it's a journey, I think why we started quite early in our process to collaborate with other startups is because we understood that, because actually the clients told us, okay, guys, now you can help us with the customers, but how does it look like if we want to basically improve the whole construction side, or how does it look like with this? Do you have an idea, or can you actually do this, or we would like to pay you that? Can you please develop an additional feature to help us here and there? Yeah. So we realized quite early, wait a second, I mean, okay, there is a need of helping the clients to provide a broader scope of the digitized value chain. That's why we identified already early in the process the right partners, so we are able to say to our clients, okay, if you want to tackle this or that challenge, we have already a cooperation partner. We are connected with them on a technical base, so we have APIs, so you can just have a seamless connection with all regarding all the data and stuff. So we can see that this is very beneficial for the companies, and they demand it, and it's very important for them.
There's a sense that the marketplace is becoming more sophisticated, more demanding. We talked about it in consumers, but actually it's true of the industry marketplace as well. Milan, before we finish up, just because, we talk about the journey that PropTechs and all startups indeed have to take. Today is a big day for your company. You're closed on 3 million seed funding. Can you talk to us a little bit just about the process, or really don't even talk to me, talk to the startups who are in your position, who've spent the last, 2 to 3 years developing a product, trying to get market traction, trying to get early funding. Can you talk to us maybe just about some of the things that you really learned along the way, and maybe what really pushed investors over that 3 million? What really pushed them kind of over the line?
Yeah, I think there is even a more interesting story behind it, because we actually signed this round already last year in March, but it was cancelled because of COVID. We had a family office behind it, and because of COVID, they were not able to pay. And so you can imagine what it meant for us. So we needed to start the whole fundraising again. And that's why it was like a big challenge to fundraise again in the COVID pandemic. Fortunately for us, the COVID pandemic had a big boost for our business because our product is all about working remotely with customers, working remotely with other project participants. And so we saw after summer 2020, when the whole craziness was a little bit over, like everybody understood, okay, wait a second, it's that the world is not going to end here now. we have to deal with this. And there are also some opportunities. The business went really well. And I think this was a very important part to raise actually a bigger round than we signed in March 2020.
That's interesting. Was that based on market traction?
Yes, yeah, it was. And what was also very interesting is that we closed the whole round through Zoom. We never met the investors. This was also, we never met our clients. We never met them personally. Before COVID, it was impossible to acquire clients through Zoom because it was just like the people were like, oh, no, we are not using it. Like this old fashioned, I want to meet you, I want to shake your hand. Yeah. And now after COVID, like 95% of our clients, we acquired them through Zoom. So this was a game changer. And I think also the investors realized that. And the combination of this and also our traction helped us a lot, to basically build a really, really nice consortium. We have now lead investors from UK with PyLabs, France with Axeleo, and Austria with AWS. And this is, I guess, also the reason why I would say we are more winners out of the COVID. And you asked me for advice for other startups. What I have learned is you need the best team. We went through, everybody in startups, in startup scene, you are talking about this valley of tears, right? You're going through this valley of tears. We went through it. And you're going through this only with the best team. So you need to make sure you have the best co-founders, the best team, because if you have to go through such tough times, and then it's really about surviving. It sounds hard, but it's really about surviving. And you have to do this with the best team. And that's why my advice would be make sure that you have the best team, so you can tackle all these challenges which are in front of you.
Yeah, I think that's excellent advice. I think it's excellent advice, not just for startups, but for all businesses, particularly those who are looking at change or innovation. So thank you for being so generous with your time, especially today when I'm sure you want to go and celebrate with your team, whether it's digitally or otherwise. So thank you so much for joining us this week. That was Milan Taradic,
Milan from Propstar.
I've made a mess of that. And you are, of course, founder and CEO of Propstar. So that's it from us today on Property Matters, Dublin South FM. You can get in touch with the show on social media at iPropertyRadio or email hello@iPropertyRadio.com. Also, my thanks to Peter Rice on sound. We're back at the same time next week. From myself, Carol Talon, and all the team here, stay safe.